to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. I'm Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak for another fantastic episode. We're talking movies. We're talking TV. We've got it all for you. But the big headliners today, Thanksgiving at the theater. We're going to talk The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. We're going to talk Napoleon. We're going to talk Wish, as well as everything else going on in the entertainment world right now. Johnny, how are you? How was the holiday? How was the birthday? What a time for you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be back on the show. It's been a fun, a very enjoyable last few days here with, like you said, the holidays, my birthday, and just been spending time with the fam. Obviously been watching a lot of stuff, of course, but
We're in the midst of screener season.
yes, 100%. Like it's full on now. We're getting stuff in the mail. We have screenings going on. And a lot of these, bigger, award contending movies are actually coming out into theaters for people to watch as well. So yeah, really exciting. And I think I said this in the group chat, but even on the television side of things, I think it's even better and more jam packed than it usually is. I feel like this time of year. So lots to talk about. I'm excited. It's a good time to be digging into this stuff. Hopefully people will be keeping up and we'll have lots of thoughts.
Absolutely. I'm in the same boat as you, minus the birthday, of course, but just, watching football, watching movies, watching TV shows, and hanging out with the family over Thanksgiving. I'm curious, looking at Thanksgiving, and, I don't know if we've talked about this in like a past Thanksgiving themed episode, perhaps, but I feel like everybody knows there's so many Christmas movies. I'm curious, do you have any Thanksgiving movie traditions, or are you just like, oh, it's Thanksgiving night, straight into Christmas movie, like we can start watching Elf or something on the night after Thanksgiving? Or talk me through the Sobchak household. What are you watching on Thanksgiving other than football?
Yeah, good question. It is mostly football, I would say. Usually what we have football on, we like play board games or something. In terms of like watching holiday or Christmas like movies or shows, right now the only thing I think really that we've had on, this is me and Reagan, just today actually while we were working, she wanted to put on the Illumination Grinch with Benedict Cumberbatch. Which I actually think is a really like pretty charming and like fun like Christmas movie. I'd never saw it in theaters, but like in past couple of years she really likes it and like would throw it on as like a comfort movie, and actually I dig it. I think the animation's really fun, and it's like obviously it's not like a true like retelling of the original like animated TV special or like the book itself, but it's like a really cute version. So I appreciate that. But yeah, that's it so far. I mean, I have a list of stuff I want to watch like over the next month. But I personally don't really care to jump in literally on Thanksgiving or like just the day after or anything like that.
Well, I will say, if you haven't watched it yet, this is my plug for the Hannah Waddingham Home for Christmas holiday special on Apple. I have seen it twice now. It is out there in the wild. And my goodness, what a show. We all know that I've got a soft spot for old Hannah Waddingham, but it was magical. I watched the screener on Apple with Rebecca a few weeks ago, and then it came out the day before Thanksgiving. So my family and I, after we had finished up our like late lunch, everybody's like lounging on the couch in between football games, threw it on. It's 45 minutes, and it is just like an absolute spectacle, especially for someone like me, like you, who isn't like a Ted Lasso fan. There's lots of fun little cameos and Easter eggs and stuff, and like hands down, her talent, even without all that stuff. Like I could sit there and watch just like a concert or her singing for however long. You know, I was sad that it was only 45 minutes, but we've got like a handful of really great songs. One of my favorites, like Christmas songs of all time, is "Oh Holy Night," and she just like brings the house down with that. But you know, Christmas spirit, there's spectacle, there's costume changes, there's all the glitz and glam, and to have it coming from one of my favorites and one of my favorite shows is just makes it even better. So that's my pitch. It's out there. If you haven't seen it yet, maybe watch it now. I'll probably watch it again before Christmas, just to continue on with it. But they've got like the soundtrack and stuff on Spotify, on Apple, to just listen to the Christmas album as well. So if you don't watch it, at least listen to it, because it is just like some absolute epic renditions of holiday classics there. So that's what my family was watching in between football. And then we also gave Thanksgiving a little love with the one Thanksgiving movie out there, aka Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Rewatched that. It's not like a tradition or anything by any means with my family. Nobody had seen it except for me, so I was actually showing it to them for the first time. But it is like the one true Thanksgiving movie that I can think of. A John Hughes classic, Steve Martin, John Candy in there. Just like an odd couple road trip movie. Have you seen it?
I actually haven't. I know it's like a classic and has, you know, Candy and Martin, so it's like an awesome combo, but no, I haven't.
It's I hadn't seen it until like maybe last year or the year before. Paramount did like a John Hughes 5-movie Blu-ray that I got. And so with like so many classics from him, I was 4K, like,
I think, as well.
Yeah, I think it just recently came out. So I was rocking with the old school Blu-ray. But no, it's a good one. I feel like there's such just like, you know, John Hughes being the writer of the Home Alone movies, he's really got a monopoly on these like fall, winter holidays with the warm, fuzzy, feel good movies. But it's also like more adult than the Home Alone movies, because it does not focus on like a 7-year-old child or however old Macaulay Culkin was. But it was a good one. I think my whole family enjoyed it. So if you have not watched that and need something for next Thanksgiving, maybe throw it on and give Turkey Day a little love at the cinema instead of just moving straight on to Christmas movies. But I'm sure that'll come. Is there one on the horizon for you, a Christmas? I know you're a big Klaus fan. What's the like number one on the watch list as you enter the holiday season?
Klaus might be the number one overall pick on the Christmas watch list, just because it's like, I mean, it's such a holy Christmas movie. You know, it's all about like the origin of like Christmas and Santa Claus. And it just like gives me like the warm, fuzzy feelings of watching some of the classic like Disney movies back in the day. And I think that it being such a recent movie too, I think it's just so awesome that there's a modern film of this caliber, in my opinion, in terms of the animation style and the storytelling. And it's not a Disney movie, and it's not even really an American production as far as that's concerned. So yeah, I am definitely a big fan of that. I am also, I will say, someone who outside of that movie is really more a fan of like Christmas or holiday adjacent movies,
right? Like
movies
the Batman Returns and I remember we had this discussion, I think, where we were like, it was when we did like the Inside the Film Room did like the holiday movie bracket, and we had like the whole, you were all about the region that was like, is it really a Christmas movie?
Yes, definitely. Batman Returns is definitely up there. I have the 4K. It's a gorgeous disc as well, so I really I love throwing that in. We need an Eyes Wide Shut 4K. I'm hoping that it's coming, but that's probably up there as well. I would say that's one of my favorite quote unquote Christmas movies, so I'll be definitely watching that. Carol, that's a like modern classic in my opinion. All That Heaven Allows, that's set around like the holidays. The Apartment from Billy Wilder. And then this is one I watch like pretty much the week between Christmas and Thanksgiving, or not Christmas and Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's. Phantom Thread, I think, is a great one to throw on around that time. And that one's, I know, set around like Christmas and New Year's. So that's just another warm kind of like favorite comfort movie of mine. So yeah, and an atypical list, I would say. But I love the classics. You know, The Grinch I mentioned earlier, the Jim Carrey Grinch was my favorite movie, like as a child, like when I was like 5 or 6 or even younger than that. So that's definitely another, and some of the others, Elf, Polar Express, stuff like that. But yeah, those are, I would say I make less time myself to like really sit down and watch like some of those other ones that I know are really, really big fan favorites.
Yeah, I feel like for me, the all those ones you just mentioned of like Elf, Polar Express, like those kind of ones will be like it'll probably be on at some point and playing, but I'm not necessarily
Yeah.
like an appointment
Like while you're
viewing to
wrapping
sit
gifts or something.
right, just like in the background as the holiday spirit. But I am far and away always been like 100% a Home Alone family. I know I mentioned it earlier talking about John Hughes. Um, Home Alone 1, Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Like those two are like sit down, turn it on, watch the whole thing start to finish. Like we're
Mhm.
having a movie night to watch that. So both of those will be viewed in my household in the coming weeks. Maybe throw in a little like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone to be like one of those
Ooh,
adjacent
yeah.
movies, you know, just the vibes, like warm and fuzzy,
Christmas scene.
Christmas
Yeah,
at
that's a good one.
Hogwarts. Yeah. I've got presents.
Yeah,
um
I'll probably throw in a few of those movies as well, actually, just because I haven't seen them in a while. They do have that good fuzzy feeling to them. Have you seen It's a Wonderful Life?
Um, a long time ago. I feel like we watched it in school. We definitely watched it in school at some point. But it's not like a rewatch every year sort of thing.
Yeah,
I will say
that's a
though,
class.
it is a classic, and Rebecca and I, my lovely wife, back when we first started dating, I asked her out sophomore year of high school after she had starred as Mary Bailey in the Weddington High School production of It's a Wonderful Life. So it's got
Wow.
the movie's overrated. The Weddington High School 2012 stage production, very accurately rated. It's fantastic. It's the definitive version of the story.
Wow. Hey, the more you know. It's a Christmas classic story right there.
It is indeed. Well, let's keep this thing rolling into what we are watching. I know we've talked about what we want to be watching here at Christmas. What's been occupying our time other than football, other than Hannah Waddingham? What else? For me, on the TV side, still keeping up. I can't remember if we talked about it last time. Murder at the End of the World. It's new on it's an FX show on Hulu. Um, really interesting stuff. It's by Britt Marling, who did the OA, which I never watched, but it was a Netflix show that has a very like cult like following. But this one is really interesting so far. It's like true crime meets like it's got like a true crime serial killer vibe, but also like uh Knives Out murder mystery, like more like Agatha Christie type as well, because there's two simultaneous timelines happening of like back in the day it's more like of the serial killer type thing, and then in present day there has been a murder and they're solving it. So I'm really into that. I know we're both watching The Curse and watching Monarch. Still watching Survivor 45, finished Lessons in Chemistry, and started The Buccaneers on Apple, which is like a period piece but like using regular English, sort of like Bridgerton but less sex, it seems like. But I know you're going to want to talk about The Curse and Monarch. So what are the thoughts there? Talk Nathan Fielder to me.
Man, yeah, I have not watched the most recent episode, which is the third episode, I believe, came
Neither
out.
have I. I've only seen the first two.
So still behind in that respect, but the first two episodes, I mean, I absolutely loved. And in particular, I think the first episode was, of course, like a good setup, you know, learn the characters, their situation, everything, but and it's got that typical Nathan Fielder kind of style of like cringe comedy. But
Mm-hmm.
episode two, I think, is like a step out, like a masterpiece in terms of like it just it's right up there with anything that Nathan Fielder has ever done, like in terms of like the best like Nathan For You episodes or the rehearsal. It just makes me more excited for like the rehearsal season two. And and Emma Stone, of course, I can't, you know, ignore her. She is fantastic in the show. And um especially having seen her in Poor Things already back at the New York Film Festival. She is so, I mean, she's got to be one of the most interesting actors right now in terms of the projects she chooses and like the variety and the roles and
Mm-hmm.
her work as kind of like a producing partner and things like that. And she's just very, very interesting. And she's just so talented. Like she's very, she's, like I said, got range and she's hilarious and she is not afraid, it seems like, to do anything. So I think she fits right in with Nathan Fielder and his style, and I think they make a great like combo. But yeah, I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it, but like you have to watch The Curse. I think, especially if you're a Nathan Fielder fan, it's different from his other stuff. But it is. I'm just like really intrigued, also in terms of like where the story is going to go, because it's just seems like there's a lot that can and will happen. So,
Right.
really enjoying it so far.
It's just like so. You're talking about Emma Stone's range, but like Nathan Fielder, insane range as well, because people came to him through really blowing up with Nathan For You, which is like very just like pranky almost. It's like just ridiculous, absurd pranks. And then obviously we got The Rehearsal, which took that to an even larger extreme, leaning more into like the absurdity of it. And then this is like a true scripted like comedy drama, whatever you want to call it. That it's like he's just continuing to diversify. Like there's no doubt that it's going to be absurd every time you watch whatever it is, but the method of that madness always changes, which is really impressive. So I'm curious to see just like how this continues to evolve. But I liked the first episode. The second, like I'm still like waiting to get, just like you said, to figure out like what's really going to happen, what the vibe is going to be, to see if I'm like fully on board in the way that I was with The Rehearsal, which like I thought was amazing and I loved it. So I'm not as in on it as you are, but I'm still in, but you're very in, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, I'm 100%. And just like episode 2, just the variety of situations they've come up with, and like there's like commentary in there, of course, about all sorts of different things, art, and I can't even like, again, I don't want to spoil anything, but like just Nathan Fielder too, as you were saying, his range. And there's that bit that was going around from the Jimmy Kimmel show where he's like, I had to teach Emma Stone how to act.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, and like obviously like it's a joke, but at the same time it's like, I mean, he's a incredible actor, and he's a very different
and when
type
he
of
got
actor,
angry
obviously.
in the first episode, it was jaw-dropping. I saw the tweets making the rounds of like, I didn't know he could do this, I'm scared.
Yeah, no, he's just, and he is, yeah, angry, sad. Like he's actually like getting like, there's emotional like peaks, I think, in episode 2 that like he hasn't hit in like any other like thing that he's done. And I think it's leaning more into like the drama, the scripted drama and things like that, that I'm like just like itching to see like what else is going to happen. But no, I can see why it's definitely, it's just so different from The Rehearsal. Like The Rehearsal, even as crazy as it is, feels like more straightforward in terms of like what you're supposed to like garner from it, I guess. Whereas this is like, it is really just like feeling out. I think I think that, and also the fact that it's Showtime and A24, and I think A24 was involved in The Rehearsal as well, like to some extent. So I'll be curious to see, again, thinking to the future, like what else they'll come up with. Like it'll be more television stuff, or maybe he'll even do a movie at some point. He's obviously a very talented like writer and director. So a lot to come from that.
I'm curious to see when it's bound to happen, but the like A24 merch drop from The Curse, where it's going to be like a $75 t-shirt or something. I'm sure it'll be way overpriced, but also hysterical, whatever it is. They usually have like some sort of trinket to go along with whatever they're selling. But moving over to Apple, I know Monarch, I've only watched the first episode and half of the second one probably. But we're 4 episodes deep over there with Godzilla and just stirring up trouble with the kaiju monsters. How are we feeling about Monarch?
Monarch is good, not great in my opinion so far. I'm enjoying it. It's like a very, again, different type of show from really anything else I think that's out right now.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels more in the vein in terms of like, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's kind of a investigative, like conspiracy kind of driven show, because of course there's Monarch, this like shadow organization, and then people are kind of coming around like finding out about these different monsters, kaiju, titans, whatever you want to call them. And so that part of it I think is pretty fun. It's not like the most dramatic or like involving show from that standpoint. The characters are fun. They're not like super deep up, so far through the first 3 episodes that I've seen. But the main attraction, of course, is that they're fun characters. They're more fun and like interesting in the context of like the monsters and Godzilla. And Godzilla has like a fairly limited presence so far. Obviously, it's not called Godzilla, the show. So it's
Right.
really just trying to see what other creatures and animals that they come up with. Maybe these are from what I've seen so far, these are like seem to be like original designs and like creatures. Maybe they are from other movies or shows that I'm not familiar with, but I think that's cool that they're kind of like showing us new stuff and like maybe even inventing stuff potentially.
Man,
it
John
almost
Goodman
feels like
got smoked at the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, there's and that's the other thing too, is I think in terms of like stakes and like violence and like peril and whatnot, like they're not afraid to like really go there. And like it seems like no one's really like safe necessarily. So that's pretty fun. And they still have like that good level of scale from the movies, I think.
Mhm.
Gareth Edwards, Godzilla and whatnot. And I think the third episode is the best one so far because it's Kurt Russell is really prominent in that episode. He's fantastic. He's always fun to watch, and where the story seems to be going. And of course, Godzilla showing up certainly doesn't hurt either. And that was a pretty cool sequence. So yeah, I'm not obsessed with it, but it's good. And I think it's just something to kind of flesh out Apple's kind of TV offerings, if nothing else.
Right.
Because
I
there's
think
not, I'm not really sure if there's like a big budget kind of blockbuster type of show that I can compare it to over there.
Yeah, it's just like I feel like the biggest thing is the fact that it is literally a Godzilla TV show, which is just like absurd to think about. Like this is something of such large scale to see on the big screen, and like a Godzilla versus Kong or something that is just like, so whatever you want to say about the movie, but it's still like epic monsters, kaiju, whatever. But to have that and like have it done right, do it justice on a TV scale is really impressive. But I'm looking at the Apple catalog right now to see, I know like Foundation obviously has like a really big scale. What else? For All Mankind,
Yeah.
even. I know that's one of your favorites. I know you've dipped your
Yeah,
toes in the
Foundation,
Master
I
of
mean,
the Air as well, but still there's not like effects wise necessarily something on the scale of Godzilla.
yeah, I mean, Foundation, I will say I kind of forget about that show. I need to go back and get into it because I hear the second season's really, really good. But yeah, I mean that show, I mean, when that came out and like I saw the footage from that, I mean, that's definitely something that is hard to compare to anything that any other streamer or network has done. So they do have the goods. I mean, that's a good reminder. Yeah, and Masters of the Air is not too far around the corner, and For All Mankind, I mean, that is the effects in that show and the production value, I think, is exceptional and on par with really anything else that I've seen. So yeah, I mean, Apple, they don't play around, that's for sure. And you kind of forget it, just how much good stuff they have over there. I try to tell people like there's a show and this show and like you got to watch this, and they're like, it's on Apple. I'm like, I don't even have Apple. I'm like, oh man,
The people
not
who got it for Ted
chill,
Lasso
but
and then the people who got it for Ted Lasso and then just ditched it are missing out
yeah,
on so much stuff. Like Apple, like pound for pound, like doesn't have like the legacy of HBO, which obviously has like decades of like amazing originals, but like for what they're doing as far as like original content, like I've rarely watched something. I can maybe think of like one title on Apple that I've watched and been like, I did not like that. It's always varying degrees of like at least good, if not great, you know?
yeah, no, batting average definitely up there.
Let's see what else on the TV front. That's all for me. I know you had a couple For All Mankind and Invincible. Both of those are in season right now. Well, I guess Invincible's at like a break, right? I have yet to dive into that. I watched the first episode and just never continued on. So I know I'm missing out.
Yeah, no, Invincible. I tweeted about it like a month ago at this point before the first season came out, or second season, excuse me. And yeah, I should say first half of the second season, because as you said, they're at a break, which is kind of crazy because it's only 8 episodes and it's 4 episodes so far. I loved it. I'm just bummed and kind of frustrated that we don't have the rest of it yet because I think it's kind of ridiculous after waiting 2 years. That said, I think if you like the first season or you wanted to watch it, haven't gone around to it yet, take the time now while there's a little break and you can get caught up pretty easily. I think it's still pretty well on par with the first season for the most part. And then with Apple, like you said, For All Mankind, really one of my favorite shows ever, I would say, in terms of like the cast of characters and like the storytelling and the effects and the setting and whatnot. It's super fun. It's kind of like a space, but not all set in space, sort of kind of soap opera melodrama. It's great. I love it. Like I said, it looks fantastic. So in 2 episodes in, I haven't gotten to the third one yet, but 2 episodes in, I think they're picking right where they left off in terms of the characters and the quality. Haven't missed a beat. So definitely get caught up or get into that if you have not yet.
Well, on the movie front, switching it over, I know I mentioned Planes, Trains, and Automobiles already. I know we mentioned off the top that we'll be talking about Hunger Games later. I would check that out. So that'll be me talking Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I will also be talking Wish. Johnny's got Napoleon covered. I watched May December yesterday. That was a good time. Very interesting, steamy, slow burn of a movie. I don't think I'm like, as based on your letterbox and the way you guys talked about the package, Netflix sent a great package. Got a t-shirt in there, got a little book in there. But I liked it. I think it was like 3.5 stars or so. I think you were maybe 4 stars. This was a New York Film Festival one that you saw, right? So you've had a little bit to sit with it.
Yeah, I'm still it shows the difference in terms of like our experience with it. I'm still thinking about it and writing about it, like, and I'm how far removed from New York Film Festival. It's been like a couple of months. So like it's one of the most interesting, I think, and intriguing movies of the year in terms of the story and like the characters, especially the trio of characters that lead it.
Right.
And just great performances. And Charles Melton, I've said it on Twitter, I can't say enough. He is so damn good in this movie. And it's definitely an unorthodox story. I would say go in like as blindly as you can if you're interested in this type of movie.
I had zero concept whatsoever of what it was going to be. So I definitely went in blind and was taken aback and quickly invested in what was going on there.
Yeah, and it does take some like you have to kind of like go in and like just go for it in terms of like writing with the story. And I think that's part of like why it's been kind of hard to talk about it or like write about it, because it's getting into the nitty gritty of like what's actually happening, like what has happened in these people's lives is like it is. I was shocked and I'm still like shocked thinking about it, but yeah, it's a very good movie. And the great thing is that while it has had a limited, unfortunately, I think too limited Netflix theatrical release, it's actually going to be on Netflix in just a few days. So definitely recommend giving it a look. I think if you're looking for drama and some humor as well, I think you will not be disappointed. And some sexiness, like you said, it's got a little steamy action going on as well. So
it's like obviously like again, we're talking about going in blind, so I'm not gonna like spoil anything or even give a plot line, but like there's obviously, once you watch the movie you'll understand, there's like the subject matter as a whole of like what this is about has like relation to like relationships and sex, but
yeah,
I knew the whole like just like the aura of this movie, I was like, something's gonna happen here, like there's some sort of like underlying sexual tension, and it just like lingers throughout the whole movie. But we can talk more about that one. Like I said, December 1st, it's on Netflix, so maybe next week we can circle back to it. But I did want to shout out a quick other Netflix movie. Not going to give this one a full review later on, but you think Wish is the big animated movie of Thanksgiving? Absolutely not. Let me introduce you to Leo on Netflix, the animated film starring Adam Sandler as Leo, the 74-year-old lizard. He's been stuck in a classroom as the class pet for 74 years. He's seen it all, from way back in the 60s to all the way now in 2023, just like dealing with all these different students. I watched this movie with Rebecca the other night, and like again, going in with zero expectations. I knew nothing more than it's the animated Adam Sandler movie where he plays a lizard. And I was very pleasantly surprised. This was a great movie. It was very, very impressive. It was funny. It had like a lot of, it was like, because it's not like Disney or Pixar, it like was able to do what Disney and Pixar want to do with being fun for kids, but also like plenty of jokes for adults and stuff, which picks they used to be better at, but now it's kind of fallen off a little bit. But this was like had plenty of adult humor mixed in. But it was also still like a cute, feel-good story. And the voice cast was really great. It was Adam Sandler, obviously, as the lead. We got Bill Burr as his like sidekick turtle in the terrarium. Cecily Strong's in there. But if you haven't watched it, if you're looking for something just to throw on, this was like a very solid 3-star movie for me that I, again, had zero expectations going into it, just threw it on and had a good time with it. So this is just like a happy-go-lucky Zach movie review here. Go watch Leo. It's not going to win Best Animated Feature, but it'll make you smile, man. That's what I'm looking for out here.
Wow. I'm enlightened now.
You're moved, I can tell. Well, Johnny, I know you've watched Napoleon. We're talking about that in a minute. Anything else before we move on to our official reviews here?
Briefly, I will just say the Oppenheimer 4K disc came out last week. I think everyone that is interested in movies or on Twitter has probably already heard or seen that
My
already.
delivery was delayed.
Yeah, it's been hot. It's been like hotcakes that you can't buy because they're selling so fast. But fortunately, I was able to get it from Best Buy. Shout out to Best Buy. Steelbook came even a day early. I got it on Monday instead of Tuesday. But behind the scenes special features are awesome. There's a whole like hour plus long documentary about how they made the movie, the whole production, which is great. Some other great special features on there too. The movie itself looks and sounds incredible. I've already watched it twice. Once with my parents, who had each only seen it once in theaters, wanted to watch it again, and then my sister and brother-in-law, they hadn't actually even seen it yet, so I showed it to them, and they both really liked it. So, yeah, I just can't get enough of that movie. Favorite of the year. And then also for my birthday, I got After Hours, the 4K from Criterion. I already seen this movie once, but I rewatched it, showed it to my brother who hadn't seen it, and Reagan. They both really loved it. It was kind of a fun one to watch, like on my birthday. It's pretty brisk. It's a Martin Scorsese film for anyone that's not familiar. Really recommend that one. Like I said, you can get it from Criterion. And then last thing is Saltburn. Got the screener for that. Shout out to MGM. But the thing with this is that I absolutely detested it, and I'm not going to breathe anything else in.
There's already discourse, man.
There's plenty of discourse, and I'm not going to breathe life into another moment of it outside of saying that I watched it. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, there you have it. That's what we're watching. Now let's talk about a couple other big ones here with our main reviews. First up, The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This one was a big one that I was excited for. I got around to it a little bit later. Johnny, you have not seen this, so this is a solo review from me. Feel free to chime in with any questions or comments as we go along. But this is the latest Hunger Games film. It's a prequel to the original trilogy, or I guess quadrilogy, since they split the third book into 2 movies. But it's been a long time coming. The book came out back in 2020. This is an adaptation of that. And if I'm not mistaken, back when they first announced, like, it was like one of those simultaneous announcements where they were like, hey, we're making a new Hunger Games book, and we're also going to make it into a movie at the same time. So this has been something on the radar for a very long time. And like I said, I was about a week late to check it out at the theaters, but I was very pleased with it. I'm very excited about this. We've got Tom Blythe starring as a young President Snow. We've got Rachel Zegler, Peter Dinklage, Jason Schwartzman, Hunter Schafer, Josh Andres Rivera, and Viola Davis rounding out the main cast here. Currently sitting at a 66% critic score, 90% audience score, and an 84% Zach score. That's what we're working with here. For those of you who have not read the book or are not familiar with the plot, basically, like I said, this is a prequel. It's set at the 10th annual Hunger Games. We've got a young Coriolanus Snow, that is the evil president played by Donald Sutherland in the original movies. And basically this is his story showing how he put himself in the position to become a influential political figure. He's a student here back in the day, and he's tasked with mentoring one of the tributes in the 10th Hunger Games. And basically before this, the Hunger Games were just 24 people in an arena similar to like a gladiator style fight, and it was like a, I don't know, 30-minute affair and it's over and there's a winner. It wasn't like what we see with Katniss later on, where there's this big epic arena with theme and, you know, digital controls and all that good stuff. But instead it was just, you know, more of like the Roman gladiators. So that's what this is supposed to be going in. And then as Coriolanus is competing for this like scholarship essentially in Panem to help his family's like down on hard times, they've lost their honor. He's trying to earn his way to help his family make ends meet, to win this prize, to go on to university. And so he's really trying to show off. And so he proposes like basically turning the, you know, adding like an element of gambling, adding in the sponsors, adding in all of this stuff to make the Hunger Games bigger than they previously were. And he's matched up as a mentor. All of his classmates have like the mentees, similar to like how we see Haymitch later on when he's mentoring Katniss and Peeta. But so he gets stuck with a girl, the girl tribute from District 12. It's Lucy Gray Baird, played by Rachel Zegler. She's like this sort of wandering troubadour that goes with her covey, her group, through the districts and plays music, travels, very like Renaissance festival-y. But she ends up in District 12, gets selected, and these two now have to like work together. Him to prove himself. It's him trying to prove himself and win the scholarship, but in doing so, he's trying to help her win and save her. So they kind of lean on each other. But it turns into the Hunger Games as we know it, with, you know, multi-day affair, people like things getting sent into the arena, a whole new element here. But that was a long-winded plot synopsis here. But like I said, 84 out of 100, really a big fan of this movie. Like I said, I'd read the book, and I was excited for this, but I was also skeptical because one of my only complaints with the book is that it's very clearly like the first 2/3 of the movie are, you know, leading into the Hunger Games and then the actual competition itself. And then the final third is like afterwards and the effects of like the fallout of those games and what happens. And in the book, it's kind of like unevenly paced. The third act feels very separated from the first two. So I was worried to see how that translated to the screen, but I think it actually translated better. They did a better job on film here of keeping it all cohesive, helping with the pacing. Never really felt that it was a slow drag or anything like that. I thought it all worked together really well, all the way through that final act. So that was exciting.
Zach,
it made me, yes.
I gotta ask though. Okay, so you think that the third act was handled better, and from what I understand, having not seen it, the movie actually splits it into 3 parts, like on screen. Is that right?
Yes,
Like
there's like
part.
I think it's like part 1, the tribute, part 2, the victor, whatever. Like they have like different interstitials like that.
Okay, so the single, like I think literally the single biggest complaint or like criticism I've seen of this movie from film reviewers and critics and fans and whatnot is that the third act does feel totally different,
right,
and like
I know,
and just very strange compared to the first. And honestly, it's weird because people complained that the third Hunger Games book should not have been split into 2. It should have been just one, maybe bigger, longer movie. And then they're saying for this book, it could have been split into 2 movies and maybe had enough material to do both. So you think that it was actually, you didn't see that as an issue. You thought it was fine. Do you think, is any reason why you think people are feeling that way necessarily?
So I think what it boils down to, I totally like, very valid. I know that in our group message, when those initial reactions were coming out, I'm pretty sure like verbatim, I sent a message that was like, only complaint I'm seeing is pretty much my complaint about the book. So it makes sense. Like that it basically like when I was reading those, I was like, this doesn't seem to be an issue with the movie, but more so like an issue of like what you're adapting. Like, so for me going into it and having those thoughts about the book, like the similar feelings, I feel like I was like better prepared, I guess, to like I was anticipating it not to be, I was anticipating those issues happening. And so maybe when if other people had not had that same mindset or were had not read the book or didn't know to that was going to be the case, that like the story was going to so abruptly change in that third act, maybe they would be more caught off guard by the pacing or the way that the movie is just like handled. But because I was kind of bracing for that and had it in mind, I think I was able to prepare myself and was pleased that it didn't end up being like as bad as I necessarily, that makes it sound bad if I'm saying it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. No, like I feel like because I was going in looking for that, and I was
Yeah.
like it was handled better than I was anticipating it would be, that it made it better for me versus me being like going in expecting it to be bad. It was bad. And then I don't know, I was pleasantly surprised, I guess, because that was a worry of mine.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the other thing that I've heard as far as like criticism, maybe this is related to the third act, or again, having not seen it, I'm not, and or reading the book, I'm not sure. But with Snow as a character, obviously as this younger version, something I've seen is people saying that his, I guess, turn or development to go into this kind of, I guess, villain kind of archetype, it's maybe too rushed or too abrupt, or like maybe doesn't feel like it makes as much sense, or like something to that effect. Do you, again, you've read the book, so you'll have a better perspective maybe, but do you agree with that, or how did you feel about that character in particular, like the arc that going through?
I mean, I think I remember when the book first came out or was even first announced, like there was backlash because everybody was like, we don't need the we don't need to make the fascist president a like protagonist. We don't need to have anybody feel bad for him. We don't need the origin story of him. Like everybody was already so like anti him just based on the books, and like for a good reason. No, don't get me wrong here. But so that was definitely like something from the start, just like this character as a whole. But I feel like it was interesting to me because this was like a big budget, like teen young adult thriller blockbuster, but also like I think it was handled very well. As I mean, it's no like prestige film like character study, but I think they did a really good job of looking at at Coriolanus, they call him Corio, played by Tom Blythe. Like he does a really good job. He's extremely charming, which sort of like seduces you into like rooting for him, even though like not rooting for him necessarily, but like being swayed by his charm, and like some of the ways that we've seen from like other, you know, infamous anti-heroes, or just people that you're that you know are doing the wrong thing, but you can't help but just like be wooed by them. But I think the interesting thing here for me is that this, you're talking about like the rushed nature of him going from like good to bad, but I think for me, I never saw him as a good character. I never saw him as good, because from the start, like it's very clear that everything he does is rooted in self-interest. I mentioned off the bat that like part of the plot is like his family, his dad was like a war general and was killed in battle, but like that kind of like led to the downfall of his family because he became like the man of the house, and like it's him and his cousin and his grandma, and they're like struggling to make ends meet. They're about to get evicted, so everything like that's all very clearly established early on. And so everything that he does is out of self-interest, trying to win this prize, trying to put himself in the best position to get a scholarship, get money, restore honor to his family. And so it's not necessarily like seeing him go from good to bad. It's just like he's always bad. He's always looking out for himself. And along the way, he's falling in love with Lucy Gray, with Rachel Zegler's character, which leads to like this will they, won't they relationship, the line between like mentor and tribute. And again, that's all out of self-interest for him. It's not, he doesn't want to save her in a sense of like, abolish the Hunger Games. The Hunger Games are bad. I want to save Lucy Gray. It's, I want to save Lucy Gray because I have feelings for her. I don't care if everybody else dies. I don't care if we continue on with the Hunger Games. Like, we should continue on with them because of the rebellion, because of all that. So it's all, again, out of self-interest. There is no good or bad. He is strictly bad. So we're looking at him and like his inner turmoil with what he wants, not necessarily his devolvement from a hero to a villain. So I didn't have issues with that. I know that was a very long answer to your question, but I think that helps justify that in my mind, where I never was like, oh, this was too rushed showing him go from good to bad, because there was no question he was always bad to me.
That's fair. No, I definitely hear that. Again, as someone who hasn't read it or seen it, I think that makes sense. I guess maybe the last thing I would just get your thoughts on is, obviously you said earlier, it's 66% critic score, audience score is pretty good. I mean, for a blockbuster, it's like 90%. I know the cinema score was a little bit lower. I think it was like a B+ or something. Do you think, like, it's kind of middling reviews? Like, what do you think is the disconnect there in terms of the quality or like the reception of the movie, I guess, in terms of critics versus audience? Is that just that you think that the book fans are just really happy with it, and so like that's the predominant kind of
I think
sentiment?
I mean, like, I'm sure that my review is being swayed by the fact that like I have a like relationship with these books. Like, I read them in middle school, and I don't know when the last one came out, maybe I was in high school, like watched the movies. I think Catching Fire is still, like, outside of the Hunger Games, it's like a fantastic movie on its own, not just like a great Hunger Games movie. This was no Catching Fire, it was still below that. But like overall, with the difference between the scores, like, I think audience, like the book fans are turning out for this. This is like the kids our age that were connected are now, mid late 20s, showing up to watch the continuation of, like, I don't know if you remember, but like Hunger Games was like a rabid fan base like back in the day. So like they're coming back out in full force for this, it seems like, and really enjoying the product, whereas like the critics are not necessarily with that connection to the world, to the lore, to all of that stuff that fans may or may not have a passion for. And then hopefully introducing a new audience. I know, like, obviously Rachel Zegler's got like the pulse of Gen Z, so bringing in new fans that are enjoying this. She's got a whole army of stans that are able to support and give good reviews. So I think honestly that's the biggest divide here, and I fall in the middle as someone who tries to look at things with a critical lens, but also knows that this is something that objectively I am, or I guess subjectively, I am invested in and a fan of. So that's why I was obviously closer to the audience score, but still a little lower to fall a little bit in the middle there. But no, I'm excited. I put this in my, this will show my bias, but I put it in my Letterboxd review. That I would watch, if you made 75 Hunger Games movies for all 75 Hunger Games yearly, I would watch all of them. Like, I will be there. These movies are very exciting. Like, I would love to see a Haymitch movie about his Hunger Games. Get like a young actor playing young Woody Harrelson, or give me a Finnick Hunger Games to bring that character back, and all of the things. The thing about this movie was that it like enhanced what we got. It didn't feel unnecessary. It didn't, sometimes the way we get Easter eggs with Marvel or Star Wars or something, where it's like, that's the thing. But instead, like, this was like its own story that just expanded the world, expanded everything that we had already known. So I feel like there's room to continue to play. I don't know if there are any plans for like an additional book or additional movies. I don't think it would necessarily be like this story, but just within the world, I think that there's definitely stuff to continue to expand on this world. And I'll be there. I'll be seated for it if we do.
Hey, I think that's a pretty good stamp on that. From a what sounds like a true fan of the books.
I'm giving you the 3-finger salute right now.
Oh man. Yeah, I remember back in high school, early high school, freshman year, uh Hunger Games like came out that year, like the movie. And I liked the movie. We read the book in class before the movie came
Mhm.
out so we could be caught up. And I never read any of the other books. I watched Catching Fire in theaters because that was like a big sequel coming out. And then I never watched the last two movies, and like I said, never read any of the other books, including this one. So, and I haven't seen the movie yet, and I'm not sure if I will. So, obviously, I'm not one of the
You're
true
not
Hunger
steeped
Games.
in the lore of the Hunger Games
Is that what? Is
universe.
there a name for Hunger Games fans? Is there some sort of fun like lingo, or is it just
The the Hungies, the
the Hungy? There you go.
Mockingjays. I don't
You heard it
know.
here first.
That's what I
Trademark.
have dubbed us. Yeah. Um, well, maybe Catching Fire is great. Mockingjay. I haven't revisited the Mockingjay movie. I remember like the book is good, and then the last like 50 pages just like made me hate it because like horrible things happen. But like not it's just like an upsetting ending, not like a bad ending, I guess. But I remember like not being impressed by either of those movies, as you mentioned, the way that they split it into two, and definitely they came out and said that recently they definitely did not need to split it into two.
Yeah. I
But
almost wonder if the reception of those movies has hurt the reception of this one, like in any way, whether it's critics or audience or whatever the case may be. But obviously, we're not that far
I'm
removed from those. I can't remember what year that was, but
I remember I finished the book my freshman year of high school, so probably like I don't know, 2013 maybe. Um, let's see, Mockingjay. 2014 was part one and 15 was part two. I'm looking at the books on my shelf right now, and this book, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, is literally like double the size of Mockingjay and was one movie versus that being split into two. But oh well,
yeah.
what are you gonna do? That's it from the Hungies over here. Let's move it on. Let's keep it rolling. Switching over to you, Johnny. I've talked enough. Napoleon, talk to me.
Hey, I'm glad that you were satisfied, Zach. I just want to say it's always a bummer when you're a big fan of a book or a franchise series, and something comes out and you're like, damn, that really hurt
Thank you,
my
Johnny. That
fan
means a
heart.
lot.
But on my side of things, I guess if I'm not a fan, if I'm not a hungy, I am very much a history nerd, and I'm actually not that well educated in terms of Napoleon. I like have like an outline in my head, I guess, going into this movie. But I've had this one on my calendar for like 3 years now, maybe. I think it was announced and like was kind of gearing up back in like 2021, maybe. Um, and I remember like when the announcement came out, like Joaquin Phoenix, Ridley Scott, Napoleon movie. I'm like, wow, that sounds really, really cool. And I know at one point Jodie Comer was going to be Josephine, and then she had to drop out because she was doing her play, and then Vanessa Kirby got hired. I'm like, oh, I love Vanessa Kirby. And of course Ridley Scott, he cranks movies out at a pretty quick clip. But I think one of the other cool things about this production was when they were getting it together was that it was going to be an Apple, because Apple TV Plus was like really just getting off the ground at that point, kind of early days of like the pandemic, for example. So this was like one of their big first movies, at least on this scale, with Killers of the Flower Moon. Of course, they're coming out with like within a month of each other, just these years later. So kind of funny how that worked out, but it's an interesting reception so far. Rotten Tomatoes 62% critic score, and audience score is just slightly below that. Actually, I think it's rotten technically at 59%. I give it definitely a say of a 75 out of 100. I thought it was really good, really enjoyed it, in ways that I expected to enjoy, and then also some that I didn't. I think that was like the pleasant surprise of it. But Napoleon details the checkered rise and fall of the iconic French emperor, Napoleon Bonaparte, in case you didn't know, played by Oscar winner Joaquin Phoenix. The film captures Bonaparte's relentless journey to power through the prism of his addictive, volatile relationship with his one true love, Josephine, which is Vanessa Kirby's character. So, and she's an Oscar nominated actor, which if you haven't seen Pieces of a Woman, just plug that. It's on Netflix. It was like maybe my favorite movie of 2020. Go check that out. She's amazing. But
Devastating movie.
devastating
Devastating
movie, but
movie.
great movie as well. get your tissues. But in this one, not quite as devastating, I would say. But I thought, going into it, talking about expectations, Ridley Scott, we've seen him do The Last Duel, we've seen him do Gladiator, Kingdom of Heaven, Robin Hood. He's been in his bag in terms of historical epics, battles, swords and sandals, that sort of thing. And so to see him take on this type of figure, I thought was very exciting. I knew that he would have those things together and probably look pretty damn good. I can say they definitely are. Definitely highlight of the film is the battles, the action sequences, the way that's all staged and shot. Looks awesome, sounds even better. And I thought all that was really nicely done. The sound is incredible. Some of the best sound of the entire year. Would certainly have that awards conversation, including the effects. I think all the effects, I didn't think there was, for such a large scale movie, obviously a lot of like real location shooting and sets and whatnot, but still, I would imagine there's a lot of effect shots, and I thought all of it was pretty seamless. Nothing really stood out to me and looked ugly or fake or anything like that. And then, that's kind of what gets you in the door. I think that's like they're advertising as this big epic, and that's what's going to put butts in seats, especially for guys, I think, that especially know Ridley Scott, or have maybe grown up with his movies. But I knew that the focus was going to be on the relationship between Josephine and Napoleon, so I was already primed up for that. But I think even got more of it than I hoped for. And I think that they leaned into certain interesting elements of the relationship even more than I hoped. The movie is just over 2.5 hours. I'm really looking forward to the 4-hour cut, which has been teased by Ridley Scott. And given Apple's relationship, Apple TV Plus streaming, I imagine we are going to get a cut of that. Hopefully it's the indication that could be close to maybe 4 hours even. So like a whole nother movie like added on there. I think that could benefit this movie a lot, because the best part of it, to me, most entertaining part, was the relationship. And Napoleon and Josephine, they're toxic, they're unconventional, but they do have like a real genuine connection. And just watching their ups and downs and the roller coaster of how they meet and how they come together like as an actual couple, like in public life and everything. And then through like the rest of their marriage and whatnot, and each of their respective lives, I thought was really, really well done. And the performances are really good. Joaquin Phoenix, I've seen some criticism. It seems pretty divisive, the movie overall. One of the main things I think is Joaquin in the role. Do people think he does a good job? Do they think it's accurate, or whatever the case may be? I'm not sure how accurate it is. I'm not sure anyone really knows what, Napoleon, how he talked, how he walked, what his actual personality was like, how he came across to people. You think of Napoleon, and I think a lot of people think of a great military commander and a ruler. And in the trailer, it says all these different like adjectives, tyrant and etc. And he definitely is that. But I think what I loved about his depiction, the way Joaquin played it, is that he's just kind of like a weird, kind of a loser in some ways, but like he just manages, like he just hits all the right beats and like has luck, and like the way he gets involved with the military and politics, and like it's not like he just happened to wind up in power, but he does get lucky, and he does manage to just with the different situations he ends up, whether it's battles or coups and all these different things, he's just someone that people apparently kept turning to, and eventually became emperor. So I thought he was really funny. I think the movie is very funny overall. It's probably one of the funnier movies I've seen this year, which is kind of, again, not what you're expecting probably going into it, or based on the trailers. From my theater, I thought people were actually liking it more than I expected. Like there was a lot of like it laughing, like they seemed to like be in on it, which was good. And a lot of the humor comes from Joaquin, just like the way he plays Napoleon as with this kind of weird personality. But then also like the relationship again between him and Josephine, like just they're cute, but they're like so toxic and absurd, and like whether it's their sex life or the way they talk about like dealing with children, and pregnancy and that sort of thing, or the way they act in like court. I thought all that was really great. Ridley Scott, I guess, probably isn't known for like being a comedic or like humorous filmmaker just from the majority of his filmography, but I think between like The Martian and House of Gucci and then this, like in the last few years, I think he's shown that he can lean into that. And I think it's better for it. I think that you could do a straightforward, straight-faced Napoleon movie, and I don't think it would be as interesting. I don't think it would just be a history book at that point, or a textbook, like just hitting all the beats. I think taking this particular angle on it is way more interesting. And apparently, again, having not read like his biography or like super informed on Napoleon, it seems like their relationship very much was this way. And I think looking at his life and his career and all these different things through their relationship, I thought added a lot to it. And I saw it with Reagan. I saw it with my brother and my sister-in-law. We all really liked it. We all liked it, I think, more than we expected. My brother already added Napoleon's biography to his Christmas list, so maybe we'll be getting that for him. But the ladies in particular, I think, liked like especially how they did the relationship. There's almost like a Pride and Prejudice, like just like a costume drama like vibe to some of the romantic elements. So yeah, overall I can see, I understand the criticism. It's not maybe a great movie. I think it's really good, and I think that there's a opportunity to expand because what we got was good, but I want even more, and I think that it would benefit and up it in terms of its overall like stature if you got another 45 minutes of like their relationship like really like fleshing out even more and just developing maybe more slowly, and maybe some of the historical elements, certain events or battles, you get a little bit more insight to those could be helpful. Because yeah, it does maybe feel a little bit rushed, or like again, it's not hitting every single point of his life with like full force maybe, but again, for what I was hoping, like expecting for a story and like a movie, I think, and seeing it in Dolby, especially like I said with the sound and the cinematography, which I thought was really good. It's yeah, I was just very satisfied, and hopefully it'll do well. It seems like it's doing well at the box office so far, which is nice. It's the biggest movie in the world right now, actually, which is kind of insane, especially over a brand new Disney movie, which we'll be talking about in just a moment. But yeah, I give it a shot. If you are even slightly interested, I think it's worthwhile, especially seeing it in the theater. But if not, catch it, especially maybe that 4-hour cut at home, whenever that comes out. I think that this will be a movie that's overlooked in terms of awards, most likely, but I think it's still one of the best made films of the year in terms of the craft and everything else.
It's so interesting to me to hear. I have not seen this yet. I fully intend to. But listening to you, looking at other reviews, other critics, and the biggest criticisms of this movie, I feel like it's twofold. And it's so interesting to hear you say about this 4-hour cut. On the one hand, we've got people saying like this is too, like it was too long, it dragged on, but at the same time, people are saying it's disjointed. We want that 4-hour cut. We need the additional 45 minutes of relationship. We need the extra stuff. So I don't know if there's a question for you in here, but I think that's just so intriguing to, at the same time that you can complain that this is too long, you also want more of it in order to fill in. Because I guess for people saying that it's currently too long, it's because they aren't getting that return on investment, the payoff that you are saying you will get with that 4-hour cut, with the filling in all the gaps.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. And yeah, it is kind of strange. Like there has been that kind of contradiction almost in terms of like the critiques and whatnot. Again, I see both points. Like I understand it. For me though, it was just, I totally vibed with it, like almost beginning to end. Certain things maybe could have felt a little bit, more shallow or a little bit quicker than I would have liked. But overall, nothing. There was no point in the movie where I was like, dang, this is like, feels like it's gone off the rails, or feels like it's gotten really bogged down. I think that, and again, even from a script standpoint, yeah, maybe there's some cliches, maybe there's not as much on the page in terms of like the characters and certain points of the story, or like certain relationship elements, but I thought it was just kind of like what I wanted out of the movie. And there's other Napoleon movies out there. There's Waterloo, there's Napoleon, Abel's Napoleon from the 20s. There's certainly been other takes on this figure and his story from different angles, different battles, different aspects of his life. But I think, why do that again? Why do a totally straightforward narrative? Why do a specific like battle, make an action movie? Like this is something where it's like, yeah, this guy, he was like kind of a weirdo, he was kind of like a little creep, but he had this really interesting marriage and relationship, and that like kind of informed like everything he did in his life, and how it, what did that look like, and how, how would you imagine that? And it kind of has like a kind of almost like a Shakespearean dramedy feeling to it, like a tragedy and comedy and all that. So yeah, it's definitely not gonna be for everyone, but I think it's worthwhile, especially if you're interested in history or Napoleon or Ridley Scott, great battle sequences, and if you're open to the humor and like the tones that it swings at, I think it hits most of them.
How I know I said I haven't seen this. I have seen one clip that you probably know what I'm talking about that's made the rounds on social. You're talking about the comedy. Is the "you think you're so great because you have boats"? Is that played for laughs,
God, man, it's
or is
so
that a
goddamn
genuine
funny.
scene?
It's so funny, man. Like everything. Oh man, Joaquin and Napoleon. He's just so funny. Like I can't stress it enough. Like he's basically in kind of like I can't explain the mode he's in, like in this movie. Like it's kind of, I've seen comparisons to like his performances like in Joker, like Beau is Afraid, which I can
Mhm.
definitely see like parallels. Um, but it's still like a singular kind of like take on it. And it is meant to be funny. Like it's clearly like a very like it's trying to make this seem like as ridiculous and funny like as it was, which a lot of the stuff is they talk about like historical accuracy and whatnot. I'm not showing up at the theater to get the most historically accurate version. You know what I mean? Like I don't care about that as much as maybe some other people do. But like a lot of stuff like did actually happen. Like certain elements of this are true. So no, it's a very like actively, purposefully funny like movie. So I think if you're expecting that and like are open to that, you'll have a better time with it. I was like, and again, like I said, my theater, who I went with and everything, we were laughing and like very much. And there's other stuff in the movie, like that boat scene is very funny. One of the funnier things. There's also that lamb chop clip some people may have seen that Apple put out. But there's other much more overtly funny, like absurd moments. So and to me, they didn't clash or like take away from the more serious, dramatic or emotional or epic like parts of the movie. I thought it worked for me in terms of the balance there.
Good. I like I said, I'm fully intending on seeing this in theaters. You mentioned the scale of it, so I do want to catch it in theaters before it makes its way to Apple. So fingers crossed, but I'll keep you posted there on that. But any final
Got
thoughts on Napoleon before we move on to this last review? Very big tonal shift here.
No, I think about covers it. I'm just happy that this is a project that actually got made, and I kind of gave some background at the beginning. But Apple just, if this is just kind of the start for them, it feels like in some ways, and I think there's just a lot that they have to offer. And Ridley Scott is a filmmaker, he's got some great stuff around the corner too. Gladiator 2, we'll probably be talking about that this time next year. And again, Joaquin Phoenix doing great work, Vanessa Kirby, etc. So yeah, give it a shot. I was not disappointed, and I was looking forward to it.
There you have it. Now, moving on to our final review of the episode, we're talking Wish. So, Johnny, you just mentioned Napoleon is the #1 movie in the world. A lot of people would think otherwise. If you had to guess, if you were forecasting the Thanksgiving holiday at the theater, what tends to perform well here? There's a reason that Disney Animation has this coveted slot of the Thanksgiving Wednesday before the holiday movie release. Look at the history books. We've got Frozen 1 and 2. We've got Moana, Encanto. Strange World last year began this flop as we begin to see the
Coco.
decline. Coco, if you want to go Pixar, that's Pixar, right? Yeah. But still
Yeah.
Disney, still same sort of thing. But this is usually when Disney tries to slot and they're like, hey, we're not being carried by Pixar. Here's our big animated movie. And this year it's Wish. That's the latest one. We've got Chris Pine, Ariana DeBose, Alan Tudyk, and Angelique Cabral voicing the main cast. A couple others in there as well. But this one's a big old flop, my guy. This one is currently sitting at a 50% critic score on Rotten
Wow.
Tomatoes. Yeah, big wow. This is just not a good look for them. And we're talking about the difference in scores earlier. 81% audience score. So it's resonating with someone, but I dare say I just checked the updated Rotten Tomatoes. 49% now. So we are below the 50 mark.
Wow.
But like I said, 81% audience score. It's resonating with someone. That someone is not me, though. 42 out of 100 is the Zach score here. And this is not me. I try so hard, like now in my old age, I try so hard to approach these animated movies like with an open mind of being like, I know this is not a movie made for me. I am a 27-year-old man. This is not, I'm not the first audience for this. This is being catered towards a younger audience, towards the families, all that good stuff. Didn't help with this one because it was just heartless, man. This a lot of the complaints about this are people saying that they think this is Disney's first under the table attempt at an AI generated movie. And that's not an exaggeration. To lay down the plot here, it's an all-new musical comedy welcoming audiences to the magical kingdom of Rosas, where Asha, that's played by Ariana DeBose, is a sharp-witted idealist who makes a wish so powerful that it is answered by a cosmic force, a little ball of boundless energy called Star. Together, Asha and Star confront a most formidable foe, the ruler of Rosas, King Magnifico, to save her community and prove that when the will of one courageous human connects with the magic of the stars, wondrous things can happen. So quite literally, when you wish
Zach, that
upon a
sounds
star,
fake. Are you sure this is right?
it is not AI generated, at least as far as I know. But I mean, you called it out, like Disney, when you wish upon a star. Sounds like a good movie. That's literally what this is. And I was not aware of this going into the movie, but supposedly, like, we've seen one person in particular online campaigning for, why are you not advertising more for Wish? Like, there hasn't been a whole lot of hullabaloo about Wish online. There hasn't been a lot of marketing, like obviously more so now, but like throughout the year leading into this. But supposedly this was the big like centerpiece of Disney 100, which this has been the 100th anniversary all year long, celebrating it. Disney like updated the logo. They have Happy Meal toys. They have all sorts of stuff, advertising Disney 100. And this is like the shining accomplishment of it. And it is just like the biggest like flop possible. And it's just like, I hate that I found out that this is supposedly like a love letter to Disney, a love letter to celebrate Disney 100, because all of this, like this was already bad for me. And then that made it even worse because it's so evident that this is a like victory lap. Like, let's congratulate ourselves on Disney 100. Let's make a movie that makes references to all of the iconic Disney greats, that has little Easter eggs and nods. Like, let's just pat ourselves on the back. And all of this is just like, it's just Disney like trying to congratulate itself and make a marketing campaign into a movie, which is just like, so not even like as a moviegoer, as a Disney fan, as a 27-year-old watching a children's animated movie, like that's just so disheartening to see in this, like to see in the world of like where we're getting Warner Bros. Like canning movies for tax write-offs, stuff like that. Like, you're spending creators and time and all sorts of stuff to make a movie that's just part of your like marketing campaign. It's so disheartening to see. And I like you said, it's just like the most stereotypical like AI generated sort of plot. The music itself, like, it is a musical. There is no Let It Go. There is no You're Welcome.
Yeah.
They're missing.
I mean, you got Ariana DeBose, who's
right. You've got an Oscar winner. You've got a talented, like, I want to say Tony winner as well. But she's just like, the like vocals themselves are good, but like what they're singing is just like it's forgettable, it's unmemorable. And they try for a lot of that same sort of like uh Lin-Manuel Miranda-esque, like quick, almost rapping type music, but it just like he's not a part of this, and it doesn't have that. Like, say what you want about Lin-Manuel Miranda and him being cringe or whatever, whatnot, but like the man can write a catchy tune, and that is not evident here whatsoever. The story, I know you just commented on the little plot synopsis that I gave, and like that's only a sentence or two. Seeing the whole thing unfold does not do much justice otherwise. It's just, there's so many like little winks and nods to other things that they basically were just trying to be like, hey, remember that actual good Disney movie we made? Yeah, you do remember it. This isn't it. So I'd much rather just go watch some of those instead of this. And it's only 95 minutes, which is brief and appreciated, but it also makes it feel incomplete. I mean, it's not like a huge difference. Like looking at like a Moana or a Frozen or stuff, like those typically are like between 95 to 105. It's not like it's not like we're missing something here. But in this particular case, like the king is good, then they find out he's kind of bad, and then it turns into like he's bad, and then they have to save the day. And so things are bad for maybe like 4 minutes of screen time before they save the day. I don't know, maybe like 7 minutes, but like there's no, again, this is a kids movie, so I'm not looking for like a like a dark, depressing, like hope is lost, but like still there didn't feel like there were any stakes or anything, because by the time you like realize that things are bad, it's like, oh, we saved the day, we did it, guys. Which just made it seem like pointless at the end. And I know I had messaged you guys about this. My favorite part of this whole thing, aka, if you can't read my sarcasm, my least favorite part. After the movie, go through the whole credits. Of course, there's a post-credit scene, and one of the characters, Asha's grandfather, like his wish. Again, the name of the movie, I didn't even talk about that. It's like everybody has a wish, like they give it to the king, he takes them, and like every year he'll like grant somebody's wish. But like when you give up your wish, you completely forget about it, and you like lose your purpose in life or something like that. So it's like you're leading this hollow life because you don't have this desire. But so the grandfather's wish, I don't even remember exactly, but it's something to do with like he wants to like inspire people, be a performer, entertain people. And so he like finally gets a guitar at the end of the movie, and then the post credits, he's like looking out over the city and strums on his guitar, and it's the tune to When You Wish Upon a Star. And I'm just like, the biggest eye roll, the biggest like sigh and eye roll possible. Like if we didn't get it from the 95 minutes, maybe the like 15 seconds after the credits will really drive home the message that this is Disney and it's our 100th anniversary. So yeah,
well,
not much more to say about that one for me. It's, if you want, basically,
you got me hyped to go to the theater, Zach, and go check it out.
Yeah, I mean, and this thing is, talk about the biggest flop, like not only the movie, but it was what, 31 million over like 5 days, this coveted
third at the
window.
US box office, I think.
Like that's brutal for this movie. And
it's an expensive movie.
But I think like you kind of, I know you were joking about getting excited to go see it. Like people know it's going to be on Disney Plus before Christmas, probably. I don't know, maybe just after Christmas. Like nobody's like, they got a problem over there at the House of Mouse, and they got to,
no, they definitely do.
Sort
and
that shit out.
It's not just animated. I mean, we know from Marvel to Star Wars and everywhere in between. It's really rough, and it's so ironic. And it's not just them; it's Warner Brothers, and Hollywood overall has had a lot of issues recently in this year. But just the irony on their 100-year anniversary, one of the most successful, famous, and beloved, media companies and creators of art has absolutely flopped at virtually every single turn this year, and this is kind of the culmination of all that. And it is a bummer, as much as we like to dunk on Disney, and that obviously was not a very positive review, but
I don't go Disney or
movies,
not, right? I don't go into a movie hoping to sit for 95 minutes with something bad that I don't like. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think anybody does that. But Disney or otherwise, like, I would much rather be entertained and see something that I like. Like, I have so many iconic classic Disney movies. I love going to the parks. Don't get me wrong, I'm no Disney adult, but like, it's
Yeah.
still, I still have like a soft spot in my heart for Disney and Marvel and Star Wars and all that stuff. So it's a bummer to see stuff like this happen. But
Yeah, and it's I have fond memories of, like, when I was quote unquote a kid, going to see like Frozen and Moana, like around the holidays too. You go with your family or your girlfriend or whatever the case may be, and like if it's a great movie, especially if it's like a modern classic, it's like, damn, that was great. Like, and now it's 2 years in a row I haven't even gone. I didn't see Strange World, and I'm not seeing this either, obviously. So, yeah, they got major issues. So that's like a whole other. We could probably talk about that for a while, but
yeah, this
is
podcast is
it
ending, not going on for another 3 hours, Johnny.
is there any last closing thoughts on Wish that you have?
No, that's more than enough. More than enough thoughts there. That's it. That's the episode. Wish, Napoleon, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. What a time at the theater. Thanksgiving, great wrap up here. Thanks for listening. In the season of giving thanks, we're thankful for all of you. Thanks for tuning in week in and week out, for following us, doing all the things. We appreciate the support and would not be able to do all this without you. So appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all so much for supporting us as always. Makes every year, every awards season, a fun time to discuss. Really busy, but a good busy to kind of keep things up top, talking about movies, shows. So make sure you stay tuned with all that is coming. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe on YouTube. Those pages and accounts can be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter called The Rewind. You can find that on our social pages and in our bio here. And be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, we're on Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeart, YouTube, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there. And we are also in the midst of award season, so it's about to get spicy in here. Make sure you come back and listen to us next week. We'll see you then.